I'm thinking often of Emily Dickinson these days because I usually do. She's part of my thoughts in my own head that I keep with me all the time. Also because it's National Poetry Month, and also because she was a person who chose to live in isolation for much of her life. She had a wonderful dialogue with the world through her poems, and she wrote letters, but for most of her life, she lived by herself, like many of us are now. So I wonder often how she found ways to enjoy the time that she had by herself in her room. Today, I would like to read two poems, one at the beginning and one at the end. And I have a wonderful biography for children about Emily Dickinson that's titled appropriately, Emily. It's a long book. There are lots of words on every page. So if you'd like to learn and listen to the story of Emily Dickinson's childhood, this is just about her childhood, perhaps find a comfortable place to sit so that you can relax while you're listening. Beginning with a poem. She didn't give titles to her poems, Emily. They're separated, and she wrote most of them in her own hand. They're separated by people who have collected them by numbers. This poem is very short, one stanza. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and one bee. One clover and a bee, and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. So reverie is a beautiful word, but one we don't hear very much. It's like delight, a state when you imagine things wonderful. We're doing a lot of that now, imagining the things that we enjoy that we can't do right now. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. I like this poem also because outside of our classroom at Wheaton Montessori School, we're so fortunate to have beehives. And so we can watch each day the bees, and so fun to think that each little bee can make a prairie. A bee and a clover. All right, the story of Emily Dickinson. I will show you the pictures, but like I said, there's a lot of words on each page, so be patient. Or close your eyes perhaps, and you can make your own pictures while you wait. There is a woman on our street they call the Myth. She lives with her sister in the yellow house across the road. Her room is the one on the left at the front. If you stand on tiptoe, you can see it peeping over the high hedge as you pass. She hasn't left her house in nearly 20 years. If strangers come to call, she runs and hides herself away. Some people say she's crazy. But to me, she's Emily. We were still new to the house the day the letter dropped through the slot. I heard it whisper to the floor and ran to pick it up. I peeked through the narrow window in the door. There was no one there but Winter, all in white. Mother was in the parlor practicing when I brought the letter in. As she opened it, a little spray of flowers fell onto the keys. I picked them up. They were dry and flat. Dear neighbor, she said, I am feeling like these flowers. Revive me with your music. It would be spring to me. Who is it from? I asked. Nobody, dear, she said. Now run along and play. You may take these with you if you like. And she tucked the note away. You know the song, White Coral Bells, Lilies of the Valley. I wonder if Emily Dickinson liked to pick lilies of the valley in the spring. Maybe she did. Upstairs, I laid the flowers on my windowsill beside the box of lily bulbs we had brought from the home. They had lain in the cellar cold and dark all winter long, but Father said that we would plant them soon. He said it would help to make this house our own. Below, the garden slept beneath the snow. I saw footprints leading down our walk across the road and up through the hedge of the yellow house. That night I sat in the shadows at the top of the stairs. Glasses chimed through the open parlor door below. Voices drifted up the dark. "You got a letter from the myth?" said Father. "Yes, it came today with a few pressed flowers. She wants me to play for her." "And will you go? It's not everyone that's asked, you know." "Well, one can't help but be curious, I suppose. But still." Do you hear the music playing in the background, my friends? I thought it would help us to feel more part of this good story if we had music too. It's a piano. A stair creaked as I crept back to my room. I sat in bed and looked across the street. The light shone in her room. A shadow moved upon the shade. Did she sometimes sit there watching me? Father came to tuck me in. "Did I hear a little mouse upon the stairs?" he said. "What's that you have there?" I showed him the little bunch of flowers. Some had crumbled onto the sheets. "So these came with the letter then?" "Bluebells? Lily of the valley. How beautiful they are, but very delicate, my dear." He sat them down gently upon the windowsill and stood looking across the street. "Why does she never come out?" I asked. "I don't know, my dear. People say all sorts of things, but no one really knows." "Sing me the night song," I said. He knelt down beside the bed and sang. Like flakes of flowers, the words fell to the sheets. I listened to them fall, and I fall asleep. The next morning, the house was full of music. I was in the sunroom with Father watering our flowers. The sun was warm upon my face. "What does she look like?" I said, "the lady in the yellow house." "I don't know, my dear. Not many see her face to face. They say that she is small, though, and that she dresses always in white." We moved from pot to pot. He plucked the wilted petals as he went. "Is she lonely, do you think?" "Sometimes, I suppose. We are all lonely sometimes. But she has a sister to keep her company. And like us, she has her flowers. And they say that she writes poetry." "What is poetry?" I asked. He laid the wilted petals on his palm. "Listen to Mother play. She practices and practices a piece, and sometimes a magic happens, and it seems the music starts to breathe. It sends a shiver through you. You can't really explain it. It's a mystery." "Well, when words do that, we call it poetry." Sunset turned the windows in the yellow house to gold. Soon the night would come. I lined the lily bulbs in a row along the sill. They looked dull and dead, like the bluebells that the letter brought, but Father said they had a hidden life, and if we plant them in the ground in spring, the sun and rain will make them start to grow. Downstairs, Mother played. Tomorrow she would visit the yellow house. I asked her, and she said that I might go. It made me feel afraid. Perhaps the lady in the yellow house is also afraid, I thought. That is why she hides herself. That is why she runs when strangers call. But why? You cannot say. Maybe people are a mystery too, sometimes. The next morning, the sun had begun to melt from the garden. A robin settled on the sudden grass. It was a sign of spring. Across the street, a hedge had lost its veil. A shade rose in the window of the upper room. I saw the gift of bluebells on the sill. What gift could I bring to the yellow house? We see robins now, don't we, my friends, on our lawns? Mother wore her new silk dress, the one that whispered when she walked. The dress I wore was white, like the disappearing snow. The pockets bulged with something I had brought. Father stood and watched us from the door. Our feet rang on the wooden walk. The road was full of mud and mirrors where the sky peeked at itself. The yellow house slipped down behind the hedge as we came near. "Come in," said the woman who answered the door. "Oh, we have a little one, I see. Emily will be pleased." She walked us down the whispering hall, past a door, a spill of stairs, into a parlor at the rear. The curtains were drawn. The room was stiff and dim. The piano stood against the wall. A pot of hyacinths bloomed upon a table. The air was dizzy with their purple smell. I turned and saw a rush of white escaping up the stairs. "Please make yourself at home," the woman said. "It was so good of you to come. My sister is unwell today and fears she cannot join you, but she will hear you when you play." She showed me to a chair and left the room. Mother settled on the stool. Her fingers seemed to tremble on the keys as she began to play. The music drifted through the darkened room. My hands went to my pockets and hid themselves away. When Mother stopped, she turned to me. A sound of clapping rippled down the stairs, and then a small voice like a little girl's. "Dear friend, you put the robin's song to shame. Play more. Already I can feel the spring." Now, when the music started, I crept quietly from the room. I tiptoed to the bottom of the stairs. My heart beat as quickly as a little bird's. I started slowly up. At the winding of the stairs, I stopped. There at the top sat a woman all in white. At first, she did not see me. She sat on a tiny chair. A stub of pencil flashed across a paper on her lap. Then she looked up. "You little rascal, you," she said. "Come here." I stood beside her. Our dresses were both snow white. I looked down at the paper in her lap. "Is that poetry?" I asked. "No, you are poetry. This only tries to be." Her voice was light and brittle like the bluebells on the windowsill. "I brought you some spring," I said. From the pockets of my dress, I took 2 lily bulbs and I laid them on her lap. "If you plant them, they will turn to lilies." "How lovely," she said, "but surely I must give you something too." Her pencil dashed across the paper on her knee as Mother's fingers flashed across the keys. She folded it and handed it to me. "Here," she said, "hide this away, as I will hide your gift to me. Perhaps in time they both will bloom." I sat upon the parlor chair. Still the music played, but now I felt it breathe. My hand felt in my pocket. I thought of sunlight dancing on the sunroom floor, of Father plucking petals, and of poetry. When Mother finished, she turned to me and smiled. The woman came in with a silver tray. There was a glass of sherry and a piece of gingerbread. "How beautifully you play," she said. "We are most grateful you could come." She sat with us while Mother sipped the cherry and I ate the gingerbread. And then it was time to go. The little bit of sherry left in the glass was the color of Emily's eyes. Soon the spring came, and one day Father helped me plant the lily bulbs below my room. "I was sure there were more," he said. I thought of Emily in her garden, behind the high hedge, hiding my gift below the ground. Soon the sun and rain would make them start to grow. The leaves would rise up from the soil, and then the lilies, all in white, would bloom. This too is a mystery. So many things are mystery. Lovingly, Emily. There's a picture of Emily Dickinson, and there's, I don't know if you could see that, that's what her poetry looked like when she wrote it, my friend. I'll read this poem. Who has not found the heaven below will fail of it above, for angels rent the house next ours, wherever we remove. That's the piece of paper. And you can see the lilies. Today, when I met with my class, we sang a song. I'm going to sing it for you one more time in case you didn't have the opportunity to remember. Perhaps you're hearing it for the first time. It's a wonderful song for sing, and our teachers often sing it when we see the first lilies of the valley on the playground at school. Here's how it goes. White coral bells upon a slender stalk, lilies of the valley deck my garden walk. Oh, don't you wish that you could hear them ring? That will only happen when the fairies sing. Last poem. This is a poem about hope. A really good poem for right now. Hope, not quite the same thing as a wish. It's when you're thinking of something that's not yet, and you believe that it will happen soon. So hope is important now because I'm hoping to see you and sometimes not enjoying being apart from our classroom. So we have hope, believing in the things that we can't have right now. Emily says this, Emily Dickinson, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. That's a wonderful poem, isn't it? Gale, do you know that word gale is a strong wind? Today we have strong winds, you could call it a gale. Abash means kind of to astonish, it's a shock, surprise. Extremity, extreme means the most of something. You're extremely angry, it's the most angry that you've been, or extremely happy means you're super, super excited. So one more time, I'll read this beautiful poem to end this good book and this good celebration of Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing that with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.